the days, the streets where I live would flood, right? And the erosions is gushing out. And instead of seeing it as a menace, we all kids saw it as an opportunity to come out and play. So we would come out with our plastic bottles, trying to float it. It was fun. There was really nothing that connoted that experience was a bad one, right? And then I grow up and I'm at a space where I'm working in social entrepreneurship and finding myself, being passionate about the way, rethinking the way waste is being managed in our community. And then one day it hit me that my most fond childhood memory is a menace to our society. It's caused by an environmental challenge. It's caused by, lack of appropriate waste management, lack of manufacturers, governments, policies, a lot of deficiencies to my favorite childhood memory. At some point, my mom would jokingly say, so you went to school all these years just to come and be picking trash from the streets?
Yeah, I know.
And she didn't understand it, but guess what? Each time I'll come home with an award, I'll come home with a fellowship grant. And she's like, hey, so there's money in waste, in picking trash, employ me. She jokingly say, employ me. I grew up in a community where people didn't think that young people had anything to offer. Now, I'll tell you what, I was 16 when I came to Ghana on my own. I came for education, no family members, nothing. So sometimes I jokingly say I raised myself, but it's not true. The community raised me.
Invisible Experts Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this new episode with my really good friend, Chineyenwa Okoro, founder of Waste or Creative Hub. Hello, Chichi, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm very good. I'm very glad you accept our humble invitation, and being able to reconnect is very exciting because we haven't seen for a while. So first of all, would you mind to introduce yourself to the audience? What's your name? What's your area of expertise? Your obviously a little bit about your company,
Yeah,
the Ways or Create Hub, and what you're
yeah,
up to.
absolutely. So my name is Chineyenwa Okoro Onu-Wyetey. I'm a structural strategist, a social entrepreneur, a business enabler with over 15 plus years of experience. My expertise has really been cultivating resilience through strategic objectives and structural processes that empower organizations, institutions to help them build competitive advantage in this global economic space. So my goal really has been to push transformation through the different works that I do, one that involves the Waste or Create Hub that I think we'll be talking about today, and that's how you and I met. But I think that over the years, my work has really been one that is filled with different layers of transformation, but most importantly, one that unearths what is possible within the human experience in this time. One day you are this, the next day you are not. So it's really just acknowledging all that I have been doing over the past 15 years and really where I am now. So I'm really glad that we're getting this opportunity to catch up, and I'm looking forward to answering all your questions and of course contributing to this amazing podcast today.
Oh, thank you, Doc. Chichi, it's been a long time. I mean, me and Chichi, we've met a few years ago in the social world enterprise world forum, and we shared a panel, and it was fascinating. I mean, I love the work, especially the way that you present it, because of course, everybody everywhere are facing issues in terms of waste and waste management, and I really love the idea how you were transforming, no? From waste to useful and products to get them back to the market. So first of all, I want to ask you, what inspired you to start to work with waste, and how bad it is in Ghana, in terms of waste management and waste and recycling.
So, yeah, so, when I want to talk about waste management, I like to dig a little bit into it, right? Waste management is one component of the environmental sustainability challenges that we're facing globally. one that is not just unique to Ghana or where I'm from. But when I reflect on my journey, it really began in the streets of my village back home. Now, I am not originally from Ghana. I'm married to a Ghanaian now, but I am Nigerian. I came to Ghana seeking education a couple of years ago. But when I think about my lived experience in Ghana and I'm just thinking about growing up, it's the same situation. I think it's the same challenge that most communities really deal with. So when you think about waste management, what I think about is not really the damage that it's caused. I think about it from a fun childhood memory, because when it rains back in the days, the streets where I live would flood, right? And the erosions is gushing out. And instead of seeing it as a menace, we all kids saw it as an opportunity to come out and play. So we would come out with our plastic bottles, trying to float it. It was fun. There was really nothing that connoted that experience was a bad one, right? And then I grow up and I'm at a space where I'm working in social entrepreneurship and finding myself, being passionate about the way, rethinking the way waste is being managed in our community. And then one day it hit me that my most fond childhood memory is a menace to our society. It's caused by an environmental challenge. It's caused by lack of appropriate waste management, lack of manufacturers, governments, policies, a lot of deficiencies to my favorite childhood memory. And, it was really one that caused me to start thinking differently, to start asking myself, if I had to grow up to understand this as a menace, then I'm thinking about all of the young people, all of the kids that, still don't understand what really environmental sustainability means, what waste management is, how it is affecting their lives, today. And, coming to Ghana and seeking education, I joined a fun school club once again that was focusing on encouraging young people to think about social entrepreneurship. So more like solving social problems that can also enable them create certain opportunities for their community, like building capacity, putting out products and services that also enable their community. And part of one of our projects was always being going out and cleaning the beach, because, Ghana has one of the most beautiful coastlines, in all of Africa. But right now it's a huge mess, because when you go, all of the waste, floats down on the shores and you can't even sit there, relax, and even enjoy the beaches anymore. So we started off by collecting those waste, and it was fun. But I always started thinking again, where does this all waste go to? We take it out of there. Where does it end? It just started boggling my mind. And then I started doing a little bit of research and realized that it ends up in landfill sites. And curious, what does this landfill site look like? So I made a trip to one of the biggest one in Ghana, which is sitting on over 650 acres of land, open air, open methane. I mean, it was a most horrendous sight to behold. And I'm asking myself, so what happens when this fills up, And then question goes, oh, they burn it, all of this thing, there's a fire outbreak. And I'm curious, so there's really nothing that we're doing to think about waste from a different perspective, So mind you, I did not come from an environmental sustainability background. All of this was purely out of curiosity, and being in the community. My background is in human resources because I'm a pure business business management person. So that has really been my focus. So I started thinking about this, and I came back to school. I met with my community team members at the time. I was like, yo, have you guys thought about what we can do differently with this waste? And one of them were like, let's do a little bit of research. Now, the dilemma about waste management on the continent and even globally is not that people don't know it's a problem. It's that people don't even know what solutions exist and what role they can play individually, right? So we started thinking about how do we create an awareness that can help them understand that the dilemma of waste management and improper waste management affects us at all different levels. So they need to understand what role to play. And how do we do this? Is by tapping into the human design processes and looking at what really gets people to think differently. And we're like, what is one universal language that everyone understands? Images, what they can see. We need to be able to bring the problem to their doorstep, but not in a way where it's offensive. It's a way that is inspiring to get them to think, oh, I can use my plastics to do this. I can use my paper to do this. Oh, I can use the peels from my garden, from my cooking to turn into organic manure. Like, these are the different things we can do. So we started activating communities, educating them, co-creating with them. And it's been more than 5 years that Waste to Create have been doing this. And I am so honored and inspired by the work that we've done. Not speaking about the challenges, of course, because I'm sure we will get to that part. But I think it's really seeing the possibilities when humans decide to take a stand for what is important and what is possible and drive change in their community. So really, that is how Waste to Create started. And, that is, when I think about it, that's it, really.
Wow, that's crazy. But also remember, you have some products, right?
Yes,
you create
absolutely.
some products.
Yes.
So how, I'm interested about the process.
Yes.
When, because you are a businesswoman, right? I can see.
Of course.
Very good, very good. It's very important though.
Yes.
So how do you like the process of choosing, because waste is huge, no? It's an universe itself. So when do you start to choose, okay, I'm gonna use this kind of like material, and then I'm gonna transform it into this? How was the process? How do you come up with the idea?
So when Waste to Create was born from the vision of providing solutions to rethink the ways we interact with waste in our environment, I think the goal at the time was not really about making money. It was really about transforming the mindset of the people, right? And we thought about what innovative and creative ways we can do this. And we like I mentioned, art, images, what people can see. So we started off by using the waste that we collected from our beach cleanups, from our community cleanups, we started with one most important part. And I think that really what brought me full scale to understanding environmental sustainability is that, or waste management as a core, we don't have a waste separation process here. I mean, in some other parts of the world, we separate plastic, paper, can, all of those are separated, which makes it easier to recycle or upcycle. But that is not the reality here in Ghana. Even up till today, as I speak to you, we still don't have a proper system that looks into waste separation. So we did not just say, oh, pick it from the beaches and send it to your creative place and start working. No, we had to look at it 360. And today we talk about circularity, but that's a conversation for another day. But I want to talk about, really how the innovation of turning this waste into the creative products that we have, the process we went through. Now, so we had to go back, okay, now we sort the waste. Now, which ones are recyclables and which ones are not? Because it's important. There are different types of plastics. There are different kinds of, materials that not all of them are on the same level. Not every plastic is the same. There needed to be a deep dive into researching and understanding what makes up the waste in our landfill. Which ones are more and which ones are going to cause us more harm than good. So realize that one that is very permanent is the plastics. So we started off by focusing on plastic recycling and upcycling into arts. But then what type of arts again? People would see art and be like, oh, this is nice, but art is all around us. We are visual beings. So we wanted to look at ways to inculcate that thought in their mind. So we started off by doing quotes by inspirational people in our society who have, championed change. Quotes from Wangari Maathai, Nelson Mandela, Kwame Nkrumah, quotes that spark actions. So we're using these little plastics to create mosaics of art, and it just caught fire. Now, when we started, the social media had started, but it's not as big and crazy as it is. So we would have to go places for places. We had community activations, we had exhibitions, and we were grateful to have the global community in Ghana backing us at the time, the US Embassy, the Holland Embassy, we had the British Council, and they started inviting us to showcase this. And people were like, wow, we never knew this is possible. This is waste. How can we buy this? This is really beautiful. Can you custom make one for me? Can our company logos be making, questions started popping up. So we're like, okay, cool. We wanted to raise awareness, right? I think we're getting the awareness, but we need to make this needs to be sustainable. And remember, we had no funding. This was done by a bunch of crazy young people who were like, you know what, let's just put our little, savings and our little monies together and get the little things that are required, because that was really what we wanted to do. That was what was driving us. We wanted to make a change. And we were part of Enactus, which was another community that was really empowering a lot of young people. So we were seeing what other young people were doing globally, and that was the path that we wanted to choose. So we started coming up with different products, and before you know it, people were asking us for custom orders. Companies were asking us to make a whole bunch of logos for their company. Then they started changing. Then I had to take a break, and I'm like, yo, this is really becoming something that I didn't think was going to be a full-fledged business or idea. Now, how do we put this back in? So we pulled a team together and we started researching what are the different ways to do this? What ways can we ensure that we're touching various stakeholders within our community? So I'm talking about children, okay, children in nursery and primary schools. I'm talking about youths, young people themselves. I'm talking about government, institutions, policymakers, corporate organizations. Waste affects them in different ways, but how does it affect them and how do they produce waste in their different establishments? So we realized that for schools, we needed to educate them using these same materials that they consider a menace to develop fun things in their classrooms, like pencil cases, like things that can educate them about proper waste management, using plastic bottles to create bins, in their classrooms. So the images started, coming in. And then you have the teachers reach out to us and be like, oh, can you guys come and talk to the kids about this on World Environment Day or World Toilet Day? Those days started coming up, and we started activating programs for school, which caused us to design, our own training programs and curriculums, as we progressed. Then we corporate organizations, they produce a lot of paper waste because, of course, they don't understand how to use technology to reduce the amount of waste that they produce, but most importantly, understand what their carbon credits are, in general. So we first of all started by designing programs that help them understand how they can produce less waste in their organizations, but also how they can support the global communities in that. So you had companies started picking our programs as CSR programs for schools, for community, and supporting us. So they would join us at beach cleanups. They would join us, it started from there. Then we had our first ever Africa Recycle Symposium and Fair. Now, all of this I'm telling you is from 2016 up until 2018. So in the space of 2 years, when Waste Equate became full-blown organization, non-for-profit, these were the things we were able to do. So in collaboration with the Ministry of Sanitation in Ghana, we launched the Africa Recycle Symposium and Fair. And the goal really was also to now go in a little bit deeper to understand what are the economic advantages and disadvantages of waste management, right? And I had to go to school for this, I'll be honest. I had to go get a certification because I really needed to understand what I am saying. I cannot just no longer be someone who's just advocating. I need to be able to speak pragmatically to the solutions and to the challenges as well. So transitioning our products moved from being arts, showing people what they could do using water dispenser bottles to create chandeliers, creating the artworks, coming up with furnitures, from recycled tires. Like the collection was just so huge. And we were commissioned by the African Leadership Group to do a whole 6 collectible of like the top CEOs within their group. And it was like our biggest commission. We had it exhibited, we had presidents, we had vice presidents, top CEOs, MasterCard Foundation. We had people come and look at this and their jaw just dropped. They could not believe it. So we had that. And then we had the symposiums where we were educating and streamlining policies and things that were challenges, and then started working with the global communities to look at how can we unify our solutions, right? Recycling and upcycling is just one part of the problem. Now, waste is still being produced. Who are producing this waste? What do they need to know? In the olden days, we didn't used to have a single reuse system. Everything was reused, right? The bottles, you have to return your Coca-Cola bottle to be able to get a new bottle of Coca-Cola. There were certain things that had to be in place. But nowadays, because of our, consumerism behavior, everything has been designed for our convenience. And we forgot to think that our convenience is not convenience to Mother Earth. Our convenience is not convenience to the environments that we are. So really reimagining what could be done with waste is what led us to this point, And I'm so excited to share that between 2016 and 2022, Ghana had its first ever full-blown recycling facility called ARICOP. And that's companies processing thousands of metric tons of waste. And we as Waste Equate had to collaborate with them to design what their collection process would look like. We're also working with the Ghana National Plastic Action, which is called NPAP, coming up with treaties that are signed with major manufacturers of, as we call it, waste-related product, like after-use consumers product, like, those who are in the food and beverage space, all of that. And also working with the Environmental Protection Agency, okay, to ensure that, because in Africa, for example, in Ghana, I'm sure, in your country as well, there's tax on every single waste product, every single plastic, there's tax on it, right? So what is that tax being used for? The government now needs to consider the accountability they owe to the consumer. So if I purchase a bottle of water, or I purchase this, for example, this is a hand sanitizer, there's a tax on it for the label, right? So after use, what happens? Okay, the government needs to make sure that this does not become a menace to me, but they take the tax and it still becomes a menace to me. There's no proper systems being put in place. So we, Waste Equate, have transitioned from just being an organization that was championing with art, innovation, and creativity, nothing is a waste, to one that is mainstream and is talking about how can we reimagine waste management, how can we reimagine environmental sustainability menace, streamlining it into product, services, and solutions that encourages people to not think about environmental sustainability as a second option, because that's really what it is. You don't see people make conscious decisions to say, oh, I'm an environmentalist, so if I want to purchase something, I'll consider one that has a green label to one that is affordable. There's that reality, right? What we want to do is to educate people to consider environmental sustainability products and services as their first option, right? So they know what the benefits are. Okay, why it is important, because it's not just about the economic advantage, okay, but it's also about the environmental challenges. If you look at everything that is going on in our world today, we have research to back them. But in reality, it is Mother Nature telling us that we're not being nice, we're not being kind, and if we don't get our acts together, they will be forced to do it for us. And who suffers? We do. All of the erosions, the hurricane, the weather changes, hot, cold, the extreme, weather conditions, it's all because of everything that we've done over the past 100 years, right? So now we're seeing the challenges, but the message that is being put out is, oh, this is just an economic challenge. This is not COVID-19. This is a problem that has been here before COVID, right? This is a problem that cannot be solved with the kind of strategies that, we pulled out and just let it go. This has to be something that is consistent, that is considered, and one that is acted upon every single day. And that's the message that Waste Equate, keeps propagating up until now.
That's amazing, man. So you guys doing a lot of things. I mean, now you offer not only products, upcycled products, which is basically when you transform waste and then you turn it into a product, but also like services, no?
Yes.
In terms of recycling and working with the private sector through CSR programs, educating, like, getting with the kids and going and clean the beaches. That's amazing. Which is like, have you ever thought, your project would lead to be such a key actor in the sector? Have you ever thought, oh, this is gonna happen, or just happened, suddenly?
So I tell you a funny story, yeah? In 2020, when COVID hit, right? In 2020, when COVID hit, I hit a bit of a rock bottom at the time, I think so. Because in 2019, I had a major catastrophe. And I'll tell you a little bit about it as we go further. But just to be able to answer your question specifically, is that sometimes when we start something, we don't really have a full picture, right? And that's what I like to talk to a lot of innovators, entrepreneurs in quotes. But I think entrepreneurs are not born, they are made. They are people who challenge the status quo, to say, look, I can really do something to enable the community. I can do something to make profit. Whatever it is an entrepreneur does, I believe is for good, for starters, right? It is now in the individuality to understand what product, what solution, what are you preparing, and how is it, first of all, affecting you, the people in your community, and what do you consider as your long-term legacy when it comes to that product, project, services, whatever it is that you come up with. For my case, it wasn't so. Like I said, we were just a bunch of kids excited about doing cleanups, enabling our community, and so forth. Now, looking back and seeing how far we've come, I cannot tell you, Andres, that this is the step we took. Okay, this is a 5-step to success. Yeah. I can tell you, right? You know why I can tell you? Simply because we were not even sure what we were doing, but we knew what our overreaching goal was. And that is to really get people to understand that waste management and environmental sustainability is a core component of our lives today, right? And if that is the case, what are the structures? What are the processes? What are the solutions that needs to be developed that people will be willing to commit to, whether financially, collaboratively, that can then in turn become something that creates a ripple effect of a value exchange in the communities that we work. So even though we were not thinking about the resources, we're not thinking about money, it came to us because we were so passionate about what we wanted to do. The goal was bigger than every other challenges that we were facing at the time. But when I think back now, as you're asking me, I would say there were just 3 things that helped us to remember that we were going to get to a point where this thing that started off as a community crazy thing turned into a full-fledged organization, operating on a global scale and collaborating with some of the biggest organizations and institutions in the waste environmental sustainability space. We would not even think about it today, right? But what was critical, what was very important for us is that we knew that when it comes to championing change on the continent of Africa, the only way our people understand it is by seeing you do it. So even though we did not have the skill set, the certification, we had nothing to back the crazy things we were doing in our community by enabling it, they saw us doing it anyway. So in us doing it anyway, people started reaching out to us. Have you guys thought about this? What does business look? What would the business opportunity for this look like? How would you sustain this? You need money, you need partnerships. What structures do you need to put in place? In doing it, we found the right people who told us how to do it well. We made ourselves open to the collaborations that are needed to be able to get to where we are today. So if I tell you that, oh, I knew we were going to get here, I'd be lying to you, to be honest. But I knew what we wanted to do because at some point, my mom would jokingly say, so you went to school all these years just to come and be picking trash from the streets?
Yeah, I know.
And she didn't understand it, but guess what? Each time I'll come home with an award, I'll come home with a fellowship grant. And she's like, hey, so there's money in waste, in picking trash, employ me. She jokingly say, employ me. And I'll be like, Mom, it's not that difficult. You can also start doing it right now. So I think that it comes from being passionate about the change you want to make, being intentional about how you want to do it, like by doing it anyway. And then the right people will come to you, will help you make sure that it is structured in a way that it is not only beneficial to your community, it's also beneficial to you. Okay, we've given a lot of people opportunity in the job creation space. We've helped people to understand that there are career opportunities within the environmental sustainability space. The world global economy size for product and services that are recycled is 10 times over, right? From a couple of 5 years ago. Now people know more about eco-conscious products, green, talking about sustainable fashion. There's so many ways people are thinking about environmental sustainability today. But before, it was purely around waste management, fossil fuel, green energy, all of that was the focus. But now people are looking at how environmental sustainability plays in their life every single day. And I think that because people are thinking that way, there is a business opportunity. There is an opportunity to make money. I'll be honest, because we do need money to solve problems in this part of the world. But there's also, most importantly, there's a lot of resources that can be collected, right? And that's when I talk about resources, I'm talking about the human resources. I'm talking about, the skill set that needs to be developed. The way, by solving one problem, we're solving a lot of problems, creating a lot of opportunities, helping young people build skills, looking at the opportunities within the different things that we do. So that's really kind of like what I believe is the way to go about it, if you're thinking about starting something. And most importantly, don't worry about the end result. Just start doing it right now.
Yeah. Look, I mean, when listening to what you just said, you, like, from my perspective, you kind of embody the spirit of a proper social entrepreneur, because first, they're driven by passion, by changing the world to be the change they want to see, and they're having this kind of business mindset to, we need money, drive me where I want to get there, right?
Yeah.
Which is very inspiring. I mean, like, it's fantastic what you guys are doing. Chichi, but listen, when you, like, growing up in Nigeria, right?
Yes.
Facing a lot of, like, let's say, societal challenges.
Yes.
I'm Colombian too, sometimes it's tough. So what drives you to create value for society? What do you think, you've been inspired from someone, or you mentioned your mom too.
Yeah.
But maybe, like, growing up and seeing that you could contribute, what drives you from your inner self? What do you think?
So, Andres, I lost my dad 6 months ago.
Okay.
And
I'm sorry.
Reflecting, thank you about that. Reflecting on this question, I was talking to my husband yesterday about this interview, and I was going through the questions, and I was telling him how growing up, I felt I didn't have people in my community that mirrored the kind of ambition that I had as a young child, and I grew up in a community where people didn't think that young people had anything to offer. Now, I'll tell you what, I was 16 when I came to Ghana on my own. I came for education, no family members, nothing. So sometimes I jokingly say I raised myself, but it's not true. The community raised me, right? And when I think about, back at home and looking at my father as an example, he was someone who I would say that every time something was happening in our community, he was like the first point of contact. Someone will come, oh, Mr. Sani, we need you to, someone has gotten this, we need you to, someone is in trouble. My father was very resourceful, right? And at first, I didn't realize what being resourceful meant, and how important it is for people to be resourceful, right? But I lost him recently, and when I was reflecting on this question, and, Desmond asked me, if he asked you what's your inspiration, what would you say? Would you say me? That was my husband. I'm like, no, it's not you, it's my dad.
Wow.
It's my dad, because one thing that I've learned that brought me this far is the power of being resourceful. Being someone who can take any situation and turn it around. And understanding the value exchange of the people you have around you. I didn't think I had people who I wanted to be my role models. But when I sit back today and I realize every single one of them did something, had a major role in shaping my mindset, how I think. When I think about my dad and his resourcefulness, it's like a guiding light for me. I don't think that there's anything that will limit me in my life if I have the opportunity to knock on the door first, right? And when I think about my mom and I see how she nurtures, I see that you don't need to start something and leave it. You have to nurture it. No matter how difficult and challenging it, the more you continue to nurture, one day it would bloom. When I think about the catastrophe and the challenges that befalls Nigeria and a lot of African countries and how young people sometimes feel hopeless, lack of enabling environment, I see that as the biggest opportunity. You know why? Africa really is going to be the future, whether we like it or not, right? Because the youngest people, when you think about the demographic of the youngest population of people will be on the continent, what does that mean? It means that Africa will always be alive. It means that young people, a community where there's a lot of young people, it means that there's a lot of energy for solution. And that's what I realized at a very, very young age, is that we had a lot of young people who were also trying to thrive and trying to overcome the challenges that they were facing. And they had little or no support, but their family was their only anchor. So maybe their father would say, oh, don't go to a school in Ghana when there's school in Nigeria. It's not because it was a challenge. It was because they didn't have the resources, right? But then if you're resourceful, you would get there. That's my story. That's how I came to Ghana, right? When I think about a lot of other young people traveling around the world, seeking opportunity, I think about your audaciousness, what it takes to leave your home country to another home country to do something. It is that same audaciousness that I see in a lot of young people. I mean, a lot of people who have pushed themselves to get to this point, including you. I'm sure in Colombia is the same. You see the bustling city of young people trying their hands on so many things. That was my story, right? But I think that my dad's resourcefulness, my mom's nurturing spirit, and my community unwavering drive to say, we are not going to sit down to see things remain the way they are. And how they did so, people woke up in the morning. Sometimes I don't even know where they were going, but they were on the move, right? And it was just so beautiful to see. And when they come back and you see how the whole community comes back together, it's just so amazing to see. And I think that's what I picked up. That is what really drives me. That is what has brought me this far. When I think about it a little bit more, again, like reflecting and speaking to you right now, I would say that it is simply because I believe that there needed to be a lived experience that will help me guide the decisions I make towards becoming an adult and, most importantly, becoming an enabler in my community. So it was looking at every single situation that I have been through and accepting the lessons learned, looking at what is happening on a global scale, because sometimes we lose track of the situation of what's happening globally, right? We're so consumed in the things we can do within our own selves and our community that we lose track of what's happening globally. And that's the gap I seek, I work to bridge, is that people need to understand that if you're solving a little problem in your community, there is someone else who has solved that problem before and have thrived while solving that problem. Find out how they did it. But don't find out how they did it by just trying to do a little bit of a Google search and get your pointers. No, reach out to them, have a meeting with them, ask them, what if you have to give me one advice, what would it be? Be resourceful beyond your capabilities, because that's the only way you can build the support that you need to be able to achieve whatever you want to achieve. And that's really why I say that the transaction within lived experiences of people will help other young people who are looking for opportunities, inspiration, something to guide them to be able to succeed. Because a child who is 5-year-old has a different lived experience from a man who is 45 years old. But do you know what they have in common? They all remember when they are kids. But the advantage of the 5-year-old is they don't have the lived experience of the 45-year-old. So there's a 40 years of experience gap that they, if care is not taken, will never learn, but will learn because there is some sort of like an intergenerational connect, right? So that disconnect is a bigger problem on the continent and in the world overall. Now, we're all striving for opportunities. We're all striving for growth. We're all striving to make a difference. We're all striving to make the money. But there are people who have done all of this, like ticked it off. How are they transitioning to make sure that it gets to the younger generation? What are we doing differently, right? Because I realized that in my journey, how I became successful in court was because I was never afraid to ask questions. It didn't matter who you were. I was very resourceful, right? I believe that if someone is older than me, they know something that I would probably never know unless I asked them, right? And you realize that the world that we are right now, people are saying they're teaching, they're nurturing, they're coaching, but really they're just creating a curriculum. It does not translate through their actual lived experience. What is my lived experience? That's what I can speak for. I can't speak for yours, Andres. I can speak for yours. I can't speak for any other person because your path is different and is influenced by your community, your society, your mind, your childhood. It's a lot of things. So when I connect with people in my work and in everything that I do right now, the lived experience for me is like the crown jewel, right? And then the secondly is the intergenerational connection. How can I relate with people who have done this better than I am? And what do I have to learn? And most importantly, how do I create a transition down also to the younger generation that are coming behind me to ensure that they know they have the support, okay? They have the attention, and they also have, they have the opportunity to connect with others and learn how they can do this because it's in collaboration that we work. But we live in a world today where the bigger institutions feels way big that you can't even get to them. And they come up with programs and little things just to make us feel like we can get to them. But in reality, we make them, right? So if we understand we make them, and you've seen that today, the smallest of organizations become the biggest of organizations overnight. And the biggest of organizations, because of lack of innovation, collaboration, co-creation, and creativity, have become redundant. So the world really needs to unify its goal by collaborating and working together and tapping on each other's lived experiences that transition to our intergenerational exchange. And that's how really, I would say, I have been able to navigate life. I've been able to get to where I am in the work that I do. I've been able to be on this call with you today and, all of the other amazing things that I think that are still yet to unfold in my life.
That's amazing, man. Listen, honestly, like you project the three things that you mentioned. I think you are resourceful, you are nurtured. I mean, you nurture people, and also you work in collaboration. So I can see through you community, your father and your mother.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, do you think you're gonna be such a reference for your parents and for the youth that they work with you? Sometimes you wonder, I mean, because you mentioned before, no? I want to leave a legacy behind.
Yes.
So do you think you are able to kind of like motivate resourcefulness? Do you think you nurture through the process and then you kind of lead collaboration?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So I think in the beginning of my conversation, I talked about being a structural strategist. My career has really evolved over the years, right? I started off by wanting to be a banker because that was my first diploma in banking and finance. And then I transitioned to, the HR space. And within the HR space, it was when I found out my love for environmental sustainability. So I'm a certified environmental sustainability strategist working around ESG and all of that certification that is needed. But I'm also a business person. Business administration, business environment encapsulates everything, right? So when I think deep around how I am going to ensure that my legacy sticks, is by ensuring that I can create the structure and the processes that enable young people see what is possible. So it is not because they did not show it is possible, it's because they did not take the actions that are required. So if I can create that process, it means that there is no barrier. Sometimes people don't take up opportunities because they believe there's a barrier. I want to remove the barriers and bridge the gap. I believe that is my legacy. And if I am able to bridge the gap and people still don't go through, it has nothing to do with, they didn't give me the opportunity. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. It's simply because you did not challenge yourself enough to get to that point. Those are the realities, right? But when I think about the work that, I am doing now and the different structures that have been put in place, Waste Equate launched the Environmental Workforce for Africa strategy last year. And really, it's supposed to be a visionary 5-year initiative that aims to position environmental sustainability as a core career path for African youth. And I would say for global youth, because when you think about any work at all, business, environment, scientists, every role, there is an environmental conscious component of it, right? Every single, even in banking, you will be surprised about how environmental sustainability aligns with every single thing. The environmental component or the eco-conscious component comes in the person being able to think about the earth for a split second. So if you're producing a product, how does it affect the environment? If you're offering a service, how does it affect the environment? If you're doing a curriculum, do you consider, the impact of what you're doing? Like, how does everything that we do affect the environment? That's really kind of like the thought process. So the Environmental Workforce of Africa has a potential of ensuring that through education, partnerships, and innovative solutions, the strategy will empower leaders to understand environmental sustainability holistically, not just from an advocacy perspective, because usually that's what it is, right? But from an economic, backed with solution-driven perspective. Because the green economy alone is trillions of dollars, right? And is made up of just a few components, a very few components of innovation, I'll be honest with you. And when you think about, the world wanting to go to net zero and all of this, I'm wondering, are we really trying to get there? Or this is just an ambition that we hope to get to, right? So when I think about what legacy should be for people who are promoting environmental sustainability, is that you need to create the bridge between the information, the resources, and the implementers. Because if there's lack of information, the resources is limited. It's only those who have information that can assess the resources, right? And those who have the resources can implement the solutions. But if there's lack of information, which is, when I say information, education comes in this gap, innovation comes in this gap. There's a lot of things that is in this gap. If there's a lack of information, we cannot get into the resources. What are the resources? The human resources, the people who need to know what action to take, the government who are leading the actions, the institutions who are providing the funding, the enabling environment for implementation to happen. Right? So the right people can't get resources, and because they cannot get the resources, they cannot implement. So my goal and my role is to be able to bridge the gap between information, resources, and implementation, so that solutions can be really implemented, not implemented momentarily, but implemented long-term. You can track it. There's an accessibility because there's a structural process that has been set in motion for that to happen. Right? So that is really like what I consider my legacy when it comes to the environmental sustainability space. But I'd like to mention something new here. 2 years ago, I went into a consultancy partnership with the Consortium Jeunesse of Senegal. We just launched something called the Youth Friendly Standards. Now, I think that I'm going to be a youth for life. I don't care what anybody. Yes, retake.
So Chichi, don't worry about it, because we just lost connection for a while.
Good.
So we were talking about this thing about Senegal.
Yes, exactly. So I was talking about like how I feel about being a youth, and really kind of like talking about, what this legacy should look like. How am I making sure that, whatever that I am doing can outlive me, but most importantly, can create an enabling environment. And to recap, I mentioned that there are 3 most important things. One is bridging information with those with resources so that they can implement, because that's a critical component. And when you think about the largest growing population of people in the world today, which is young people, this is a big barrier for them. And because this barrier exists, there's a lack of intergenerational collaborations and co-creations. But most importantly, there is no structure or system that ensures that these 3 things can really be put in place to ensure that really they benefit from it. But I was talking to you about my work with the youth-friendly standards. And this comes once again from, talking about my thinking around why are certain things the way they are. I love to question things. I love to find out why certain things are the way they are. And because this is my lived experience, I started social entrepreneurship at a very young age. At 16, I started working with UNESCO as a field marshal, working in communities, right? I joined Enactus. I started my own startup, my own non-for-profit at 18. I've worked with different organizations. I set up my own private practice as a consultant. I am working with businesses. I can see my there's a mind map of everything that I've been able to achieve in my time, right? But then I'm wondering, there are so many challenges I encountered that it took the grace of God, really, to be able to come out of those challenges. And then easy. The economy wasn't as difficult and as hard as it is, right? We didn't have a lot of wars happening in different parts of the world. There was no disorientation, at least to some extent, right? And now with social media, a lot of issues are so close to the younger generation than they can even understand. And because they can watch it on their phone, sometimes they feel it's far away, it's happening somewhere else. And they don't realize that these challenges are happening to them like right now, right? Okay. If we're talking about young people, access to opportunity, education, information, finance, the next generation will be in charge of everything we've worked on for today. They will be in charge, unless we plan to live forever, right? Or we will go to Mars, whichever. But they will be in charge at some point. Now, how can we ensure that they understand what it means to be in charge? Because I come from a generation that thinks having a seat on the table is their birthright. And it is. But when you are sitting in that table, what do you provide? Like, what is your value exchange? If you can't provide a value exchange on that table, you'll be kicked out and someone else would come. And you might not like what they do, but you have no choice because you did not look at what your value exchange is. And sometimes people think value exchange comes from, knowing how to do certain things. No, it's understanding what is unique to you, where you're from, what challenges are you encountering. That's how social entrepreneurs innovate. They don't innovate from, I saw a fancy idea. No, they innovate from the problems they're trying to solve in their community, in society, in the world at large. So when I think about all of these challenges for young people, I'm asking myself, globally, every institution, organization has something to do with the youth. There's a youth arm for everything. And I'm asking myself, okay, that's nice. But why is the Minister for Youth a 55-year-old man disconnected from the realities of the youth is the one leading the youth conversation, right? So why is it that an organization who say, we're youth-led and youth champion have no single youth on the board? Why would an organization and institution say, I want to work with youth program, but when you look at how it is structured, the processes, the bureaucracy would not even enable a youth participate, right? So we sat down with, other partners, and of course, I love to mention here Kofi Aswan, the youth lead for the executive lead for the youth-friendly standards, and Sobel Ngo, who is also a youth himself and doing amazing work with Consortium Jeunesse. We sat down like, what can we do differently, right? How can we ensure that, youth is not tokenized in a way where everything has youth, youth education, youth innovation, youth there. Yet, the data does not show that anything is changing. The numbers is still the same. The lack of opportunities, the growth level in the statistics is still very limited. It's not even up to 20%. So it means that we're doing something completely wrong. So we are going after organizations, institutions, and corporates who say, I want to work with youth, I want to enable youth, I want to co-create with youth. We want to ask you, how youth-friendly are you? Okay, and we're doing so with 6 major pillars, right? First pillar is, how is your governance system enabling youth to work with you? right? So if you're saying you're a youth organization, you're looking to work with youth, and you don't have a single youth in your board. Now, I know that when it comes to board members, there are certain executive, non-executive, but even from an advisory role, do you have youth in your board? No. Okay. If you're coming up with programs, products, and services that involves youth, do you think about what the challenges, your systemic processes, how it affects them, right? No. Okay. Institutional partnerships. If you are looking to partner with youth, do you go to youth directly, or you go to some organization who claim they represent youth to get to youth? No. When it comes to sustainable development, what sustainable development processes need to be put in place to ensure that youth can participate? Or are we just saying we want youth because they make a fragment of the demographic? You're tokenizing youth involvement. So the youth-friendly standards is developing a systematic change approach, which is going to be a platform that accesses how youth-friendly organizations and institutions are within these 6 pillars that I just mentioned, and then verify them by providing them with a certification. So similar to like the B Corps and the Fair Trade, but this one is solely for accessing youth engagement processes. And we've been able to pilot this. We launched this in 2022 at the UN General Assembly. In 2023, at the UN General Assembly. That's where we launched it in collaboration with GenU, which is also one of the world's largest youth enablement community, UNICEF, International Youth Foundation, MasterCard Foundation, and go. So these are the core torchbearers that are working with us at the moment. But why am I mentioning this is that when we think about what our legacy should look like in the work that we're doing, in 2020, I lost my whole team, right? Waste stock rate was down in 2020. In 2019, we had a project, the biggest project of our lives, actually. Biggest fund we could have ever gotten. We had a partnership with an organization in Ghana here, and we were supposed to do some very big things. And right about the same time, I got an opportunity to travel to Egypt to do a project with the Ministry of Youth at the time for the World Youth Forum. I was a speaker there. Now, I couldn't stay back to oversee certain projects. Yes, I did have major people, in place to do certain things. And I thought, okay, everything is in good hands. I can jet off and go do this and come back. I had somebody else who is supposed to be a collaborator with me work with my team. Before I would come back from Egypt, Andres, the lady usurped me from my position, like literally moved my entire team and came up with a whole different project for something we have already planned for months to do. Why is this possible? It's because she came in with the excitement of, oh, if we do this now, we can get this now. Not if we do this now, we can get this now, but then this will be consistent for a period of time. Because our projects are planned years ahead, we know what we're doing at each given point. But this was a time in Ghana where the government has just launched something called Beyond the Return, Year of Return, where we're expecting people from the diaspora community to come to Ghana and experience Ghana, coming down, learning about the roots of Ghana, the identity, all of that stuff. And I was working with this lady, and we had the opportunity to set up called the Black Gala, which was supposed to be, a play, an exhibition showcasing different arts. And we were the only eco-sustainability organization invited to participate. So we had a whole collection to develop, before I had to travel to Egypt. So I'm working with artisans, I'm working with technical and non-technical people. Because you have to understand, in this space, people think that it is always those in the blue-collar jackets. No, you have the informal sector where you're working with artisans who have no formal education, but are great at what they do, but are influenced by the resources they can have access to. So our skills is based off the highest bidder. Who can pay you more is where you go. People don't build principles around the work that they do, right? And that's simply because there's no systemic change. People don't feel like they can see where they have to go within the institutions they collaborate and co-create with. So I have this other person coming, promise my whole team that, oh, if we do this other project, they will be able to get their compensation remuneration 10 times whatever it is I've been paying them or I've been offering them, and I will be okay with it because they thought that was what it meant for me. Because sometimes when you're collaborating, you're co-creating with people, it is important to communicate what your values are, what your non-negotiables are. And that's why I don't sit on any table. I sit on the tables that I feel like my value exchange is regarded and is important, and I can also make an impact. If that's not what, if it does not align, I would leave and go to those that are important to me. But we don't have a lot of young people who build that principle today. So you realize that a young person have an opportunity to represent other young people at a UN event, but then the next event is still going to be them and them and them, and nobody else joins them because they've gone there, they've seen the opportunities, they're excited about the opportunity, but they forget that they were put there so that they can lead the way for other young people to access, right? So when I think about what my legacy should be, is to educate young people, is to get them to understand that what they have today is not what guarantees their future. What guarantees their future is their ability to build processes, their ability to understand how things work, how the corporate system works, the challenges, that the realities of really being at a table is different. I was at the table, I was leading the company for 5 years. Probably my team members did not understand what it took for me to get there, because obviously people are working on their specific roles. And then somebody comes and be like, oh, she's not been doing it the way it's supposed to be done. We can do it differently and even do better than she has done over the years. And I'm like, okay, try it. They tried it and they failed. Why did they fail? It's simply because to be able to drive systemic change, it does not come up by trying to do something once off. It comes up by trying to do something once off with the hope that you can track the progress over a period of time. Right? Because that is the only way you can say, oh, I did this, but this is what it looks like now. Waste Okwe started off by using waste to create arts, but today we're a full-blown organization. We don't even do arts anymore, right? It's not even part of our core offerings. We can still do it, but we realize that the impact we want to make has been made. People now know what is possible with using waste to create art. Now, how do we help them understand that beyond the arts, there's so many other ways they can do things? That moves away from just the satori of knowing, oh, yay, this is possible. But to now, like, okay, how can I make this a lifestyle? How can I learn about this to make it a career? How can I create change within my community? How can I carry others along? What are my principles as an individual that will help me succeed in an environment as chaotic as the business space? What are the principles that I need to put in place? How can I enable people coming under me? How can I be a good boss? How can I not even be a good boss? One that helps people, when I'm normal, people can say, oh, I learned this from this person. I don't want to be anybody's mentor. I keep saying that. I rather teach you. I rather be your teacher than your mentor, because if you don't understand, how then will you appreciate the advice I'm giving you? Right? So people disregard the importance of doing. Doing it helps you understand how it works and help you appreciate and respect the process. So when there is any distractions, you can even be the one answering. That was my mistake. That's how I lost Waste Okwe in 2020. I was doing the things without necessarily letting my team members understood all of the challenges I was going through. So because before the problem would come, I have solved it. So they didn't have any challenge. But there were certain challenges, obviously. We were a growing organization, trying to mobilize resources. A lot of things were not there. So the next good thing could sweep my entire thing away. And I didn't even realize that was a problem, when I started, that could be a problem. So in 2020, I had to rehabilitate Waste Okwe completely and started learning organizational dynamics, right? Trying to understand what it means to keep a team, how to build a legacy, how to get people to understand your vision, how to inculcate your non-negotiable. And that's when I learned that there are a couple of things that needs to be put in place. And that comes by accepting and enabling people to see how things are done. Corporate organizations, governance, institutions are doing this. We watch movies and we see the presidents, have everything showing how the president's life is and all of their challenges. Now, That is all part of showcasing, right? But sometimes when the picture does not match the outcome, it becomes a big problem. And that is where I would love a lot of young people to get to, is that if you have been doing something for a long period of time, excuse me, and you're not getting the results, what do you do next? It is being able to step into the shoes to understand, how does this thing even work? Because you're doing it without even understanding how it works, right? So my life's lesson has been, now, how do I help young people understand how it works, right? How do I help organizations understand how young people think, right? How do I help them understand that if they can do A, B, C, D, they will get better results than trying to do E, F, G, H, right? So it is in the how. So with the youth-friendly standards, it is helping organizations understand how to be youth-friendly so that they can be able to work with this next generation, bridging the intergenerational divide, but also helping the young people understand how organizations think and work. Because there are certain non-negotiables. I don't want to hire a youth who can come and be redundant and can't really provide any kind of value exchange simply because I am told a youth has to be in my board. So this changes everything. What kind of skills are we teaching the young people? What kind of skills are we teaching them? So before someone gets a job in an organization like Goldman Sachs, I think that their first 6 months within the orientation is not how to do their job, it's how to navigate the work environment. Because they probably have no lived experience of what it takes. So they want to do their job, I don't doubt it, but the barriers is how to navigate the work environment. So who is teaching young people how to navigate the work environment? Who is teaching young people that before you start an NGO, you're excited about doing the NGO, it's exciting, but who are your team members? You know, how do you ensure that they understand the structure that is required for this to succeed? How, even if you can't do it, you need to be able to find people who can. You know, these are important. If not, you will build something to the extent and you lose it. And that's why you hear a lot of African startups. I'm using African startups as a case study here. You know, we don't succeed beyond 5 years. And it's true. At my 5th year, I lost wisdom grade. Like when I thought that I was on a roll, like everything was perfect, I lost it. A lot of other businesses, young people have invested thousands of millions of dollars into their initiatives and their establishment have lost it. What does that mean to the investor? What does that mean to the people who are looking to collaborate with you? It means that you're not ready. You can't be trusted. And if one person can be trusted, it takes, you know, double, triple time work for the next person to be given the opportunity. Do you understand? So it is in the how, you know, how can we ensure that people understand what it takes to be a social entrepreneur, to do anything, not even to just be a social entrepreneur, to do anything in whatever it is that you're doing, understanding what it takes, you know, for yourself, for the people you're working with, for the people you're collaborating with, for the people it changes a lot of things. And I tell you why I say it changes a lot of things, because today, you know, Waste or Crate is thriving, but we're doing things completely different. And you know what is so funny? All of that hard work we put in all over the years sets the pace, right? Because even though then we were not sure what we were doing, we were building our track records. You know, there's a portfolio. There is something that people can relate to, right? And to say, oh, you guys did this then? Wow, how come we didn't know? Then you can do this, right? So in that fail forward process, you're building your reputation. How many young people understand this? You know, how many young people understand that whatever they do today becomes part of their portfolio in the future? If you don't believe it, you'll be shocked at the data and the information, because now, thanks to social media, an employer can get a full digital footprint of what you do online. That's a very different conversation, right? So you're wondering, oh, I submitted this proposal, they didn't give me the opportunity. And you know, your proposal is so good, you believe, but they didn't give it to you because of something you posted about someone on the internet, or something you've done that you didn't even realize is part of it. You understand what I mean? So it is really helping people understand information. Back to that, information. what type of information the young people need, what kind of information that individuals need, the businesses need to be able to bridge the gap of resources for young people so that they can now become implementers and have a seat at the table. So that's what I think that my legacy would be, is to help bridge the information, mobilize, to help them understand the resources, and so that they can be implementers. And I'm doing this both ways, youth way and color, like working with the organizations and the institutions as well.
Wow, that's great. It's so clear, man. Listen, for our audience, would you mind just to summarize the 6 pillars?
For the 6 pillars of the youth-friendly standards?
Yes.
Absolutely. So let me just do
Don't
this.
worry. It's okay. It's okay. Because I think it was really important you elaborate through them.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So as I mentioned, there are 6 pillars. One is governance. Okay.
Yeah.
The first pillar is governance, and the framework is to establish governance system that promotes the identification and integration of youth perspective into strategy, and monitoring its activity. So the governance process is, how does youth integrate in the governance systems of what organizations and institutions are doing, are developing? So if there's a policy being passed for youth action, youth plan for climate action, what does that mean? Do you understand what I mean? If there's a program being developed explicitly targeting young people as the beneficiaries and the partners, etc., does it meet the needs and expectation of the young people? For example, I currently, we did an assessment just last week. We had our last committee.
Governance. Cool.
Okay, yes, governance. And within governance is being able to help organizations and institutions understand how they can integrate young people and young people's perspective into their strategies, into the different things that they develop within their governance structure. Okay, that's the first one. The second one is programs. So people are developing programs, products, and services explicitly targeting young people as either beneficiaries, participants, or implementing partners. But these programs does not meet the needs and expectations of young people. So the second pillar helps organizations and institutions understand what are the needs and expectations of young people when developing programs, projects, and services, all right? Then the other one is human resource. What are the specific considerations of young people in human resource policies, right? When fostering, empowering, sustainable employment opportunities, what do they think about? I give you, for example, you're looking to hire a young person and you're asking them for 5 years of experience in that specific role, right? And this is a fresh graduate who have gotten internship roles and they're happy to put that on their resume. But what their work experience does not match what you're looking for at the moment, because those internship roles does not really target the specific, thing that you're looking at. So, when I think about it from an HR perspective, because I'm an HR professional, I talk about what I call proactive strategy. Now, proactive strategy needs to be something that every young person goes through before they are onboarded into an actual work environment. Because the proactive strategy enables them to understand the functionalities of their role and how they can better support the organization's goal. But does organizations understand why such policies are important for them? Or they just consider the work experience and the vibe that Gen Z and co bring to the space, right?
Sure.
So this pillar helps that. The other pillar is business relations. To adopt specific measures in, for example, purchasing policies, how does that help young people? Now, to be able to make a purchase of maybe a car or a home for someone who is below 21, but probably is a content creator and has made so much money, can't even buy a car on their name because there are certain policies that limit the business relationship. They probably ask you to go and bring your residence certification. And you're staying with your parents, and their name is boldly there. But you're like, oh no, I can't give you this loan because the property does not carry your name. So there are a lot of business processes that limit business relations between young people. When we talk about community development, the word youth has been overused when developing positive socioeconomic impacts, right? Oh, this is for the youth. We recognize youth as an essential group of people to generate positive impacts on the society. Is that all? So how do they work? Questioning the processes. So, and then the last one is international partnership, right? So in developing institutional partnership with young people, what does that mean? What is the primary target, right? So these 6 pillars, the assessment is developed based on these 6 pillars for organizations, programs, and organizational operations. So that's what this assessment does now. So for now, we're assessing organizations' programs. So programs is some organizations are not registered organizations, but they come together to develop programs that support young people. So we assess those programs to find out how youth-friendly they are within the 6 frameworks. Now, when it comes to organizations who are being developed solely to be able to work with young people, there's a second assessment that assesses how youth-friendly they are within these 6 frameworks, right? And at the end of the day, the score that you get shows you where where you are in the grand scheme of things. And because this assessment was done in the back of the SDG goals, setting youth policy programs that have been developed over the year, is able to give you an accurate, measure of where you are. It's a whole different system completely. And I'm happy to do a full presentation on that on anyone who's interested to learn about this. At the moment, we are at the adopt phase of the project. So we have a 3 pathway, okay? We call it the adopt, assess, transform, and certify. Now, the adopt phase is where we're educating people on what the framework is about and what they need to know within their organizations and institutions. And this is targeting 3 stakeholders, which is the youth, the organizations, and then institutional partners, right? And then the assess part is where you get actual assessment on your programs, your projects, your organizational structure, all of that, to be able to determine how holistically, how youth-friendly you are. Now, after we've assessed, we're not just going to give you a result and say, oh, you have malaria or you have cancer. No, we would dissect a little bit more and provide you with the strategies that you need to take action on. So there's a transformational program that is now led by youth themselves. So YFS is training a youth or the next generation of youth transformation experts. That's what we call them. These are youths who would be experts in understanding how to work with young people, right? So when I talk about proactive strategy, these are some of the programs that are being developed to educate them. So during the transformation stage, our goal is to ensure that it is the young people that will spearhead this. I would love to see the CEO of Goldman Sachs sitting with one youth transformation strategist from YFS, explaining to him how youth-friendly, how youth-friendly he is, and just telling him that, okay, this is how you guys have done it wrong and this is how you can do it right. And because it's coming from them, it's not just one of those certifications that you get because you have access to a certification. No, we have requirements, you have to be a youth, passionate, you have to be able to go through all of that to be able to stand firmly for what you believe in. And then after the transformation, there's going to be an audit. You're going to be audited by YFS because now we're in the process of formalizing certain partnerships with institutions to be able to ensure that the audit is done on the scale where people can understand the transparency. So working with organizations like PwC, KPMG to develop an audit process for that, and then you'll be certified. So within the certification, there's the grand certification for all 6 pillars, but they are like individual labels presented to organizations. So if you're youth-friendly in governance, you have the emblem that says within your governance system, you're youth-friendly. Within your programs, you're youth-friendly. Within this, you're youth-friendly, and so forth. And that way, we can then develop a human library of young people, right?
Yeah.
Who can represent the affairs of young people holistically, right? And be able to ensure that long-term, we can measure and track what really it means to enable young people in our society. Because today—
How much is for the certificate process?
At the moment, we don't have a fee for it.
Okay.
Yes, at the moment, we don't have a fee for it. As I said, it's in the development phase. But where we are now is the adoption, because we want people to understand what youth friendliness is and what role it plays. So within the adopt programs, what we have at the moment is organizations apply for it, okay? Depending on the structure of the organization, determine what the price points are. So it's being done digitally or in person. So if the organization prefer you have the experts in your vicinity, they would cover like the logistic that is required for that. If it is online, you can just do it. It's free of charge, right? So there's a different approach. And like I said, this is something we just started a year ago, right? It's still a baby and we're developing. So we need partners and collaborators who can provide that support. And I tell you, the biggest challenge we're facing right now is that organizations don't understand how it benefits them, right? They don't. So when you talk to them, they're like, okay, so if I certify and I'm youth friendly, what does that mean to me? But let me paint a picture for you. There's something called the value for money statistics, right? What is the value for money for not investing in young people? Now, if today you are saying that your organization does not need a young person, okay, they would need one in the next 5 years or 10 years, because that young person who is 18 today will be 25 in 5 years. And you would need that person to come work in your organization, whether technical or non-technical labor, you will need them. So investing in the capacity, one that streamlines and enable, young people to understand the value exchange they hold, right, will help make your work process and its efficiency easier, like way easier. Imagine a young person coming to your organization on first day, they already understand what needs to be done because they have inside information of how your organization works, because you allowed yourself to be transparent within the youth-friendly processes. So when they're coming in, they are not paranoid. They don't need your full 200-page handbook. They don't need that. There's nothing they're going to benefit from that. But if you have a 10-page handbook on your youth engagement policy, that's what they need, because they need to know what their rights are. They need to understand the guiding principles between working in your organization so that they can better know your value exchange. And if you look at what's happening in businesses today, organizations are trying to appeal to the Gen Z. Every organization. I mean, yesterday I saw the UNFCCC COP29 is happening, and I saw him talking about how Gen Z will say things in policy and in climate action. And I was like, okay, now you care, right? But those are just clickbaits. That does not solve the problem. Trying to appeal to Gen Z by just saying it does not solve the problem. You're talking about a generation who Gen Z. You know why? Because they've seen everything. They've seen how the baby boomers run the world. They've seen how the Gen X run the world. They are watching millennials closely, like, let's see what you're going to do. And they are preparing themselves because they have full information. So if you cannot build trust between the youngest generation, which is Gen Z and Gen Alpha, trust me, a time will come, they will not even want to be involved in anything that we do. And you're already seeing it. They know how to mobilize themselves. They know how to seclude themselves. And they know how to champion their own things, their own way. Nobody benefits from that. And no social campaign or program will be able to save us when they come to that realization that nobody's coming to save them and they have to save themselves. So we need to create systems and processes that connects them to understand that we are doing this together and understand how they even operate. How does Gen Z want to see change? They believe in the doing. If they see you doing it, they can trust you. If you come and you tell them, oh, this is how to do it, and you are not doing it, they're out of the door. Like, right? So it's understanding and how we can, support ourselves holistically, both.
Cool. Listen, I want to talk about, this is like, I don't know, for me, there is a lot of debate, right, around sustainability. And, to some extent, this is like a topic which, in a way, worries me, because I think like people nowadays, especially political leaders and some, political activists, they tend to simplify, in a way, sustainability. They basically bring it over to their political arena without understanding the operational aspect, the potential in terms of economy, right? And like a few weeks ago, I was watching this podcast with Trump, like the new president of the United States, and he was brutally honest, which I appreciate that, because he didn't really like try to cover up. He was saying, "Listen, environmentalists are the enemies in a way." Not literally, he says that, but he was saying against growth. And this is very interesting, right? From
Yes.
me as an academic, from my
Yes.
point of view,
Yes.
sustainability and growth
Yeah.
sometimes they don't work together.
Nope.
And also, like in another podcast, I was talking to a professor,
Yeah.
Michael Roy. We're gonna
Yeah.
his podcast soon. He was saying like this is very important, because then we need to think in new ways to do economy. And he was talking about the well-being
Yes.
economy and so on. From you,
Yeah.
who understands the implication of
Yeah.
operating sustainably and seeing the
Yes.
future of the green economy in a
Yeah.
way, because it's
Yeah.
profitable, it's empowering, and also you create social and environmental value. How do you see to create this bridge in between sustainability and growth from your perspective?
Yeah.
What do you
From
think?
my perspective, I tell you what, right? Sustainability is growth,
Okay.
right? But it is the way it has been painted to us that sustainability is so far-fetched that it cannot be attained. So it is something that we have to be working towards every single time. It is more long-term that, it is something that we have to develop a 2,000-year strategy to get to. But we're failing to understand that the implications of sustainability are happening right here and now. And that's why I say sustainability is growth. But we have not done well as environmental sustainability experts to communicate the value exchange, watering it down from all the big grammars and transitioning it so that every stakeholder can understand. So you use Trump as an example. He's a politician. He's a businessman. What matters to someone like Trump is the bottom line.
Sure.
So if you know that as an academia, as a research person, as an implementer, you don't go to Trump with all the big scientific reports. He does not understand it. He will tell you why you are wrong in so many ways. But if you communicate in the language that he understands, which is how it affects his money, he would listen to you, right? And that is the problem I have with how we innovate and how we consider growth opportunities, is that we keep speaking the same language and thinking everybody understands it. No. Who are you speaking to? And that's why I love my guys in communication and creativity. They find a way to streamline their audience and communicate to them the way they understand. I think we need to do that, right? Because we've been talking about climate change forever, and environmental sustainability challenges and solutions forever. We've even come up with more fancy words like ESG and carbon credits, giving people. Would you believe it if I tell you that we're no longer fighting climate action? We are adapting. We're not looking for solutions anymore. We're not trying to reverse the menace and the chaos we have created. We are adapting, right? Adapting means that you are developing policies that make it convenient for you to still remain here while working for a way to get out, right? So we cannot consider sustainability and growth if we approach it from a mindset of adaptability. And that's what people need to understand, that for sustainability to really make sense to the people we want it to make sense, we have to understand that they have done a lot of work to get to where they are. We cannot just tell them, oh, your business is cutting chaos, so close it down. Hooray, they hear you. But they put so much resources into that. But if we can develop sustainability solutions, research, information, that helps them understand how they can transition out of this in the shortest possible time, systematically, structurally, and they can commit to reporting on how they are doing that without trying to greenwash the process, then we can really achieve sustainability the way we all say it should be. But when I say merging sustainability and growth now is that what are the things that are being done today to attain environmental sustainability and climate action? Is there a one-stop shop where I can find all the innovations, all the solutions, all the policies, all the white papers, every single thing? Is there a place? We are working in silos. So me could be coming up with a solution in Africa saying, I want to solve all of the environmental challenges in Ghana. Somebody else in Mozambique is doing the exact same thing. Somebody in Colombia is doing the exact same thing. And then we all want to come out and say ours are novel. It's not, right? So we cannot work in silos. We need to work together, but then ensure that we're communicating strategically to all of the different stakeholders that are needed to understand the transitions that are important so that we can start seeing what growth now, because it already exists. Go to COP. COP is happening right now. I was there last year in Dubai, right? And I was so sad, like you have no idea. I was so sad at COP. First of all, you know, it was a long walk. It was as if I was going on a marathon, you know. The place was so big and you have to walk to one session or the other. By the time you walk from session A to session B, you're just tired. You're like, what am I doing here? You understand what I mean? And then you have to now listen to the first speaker saying the same thing, the second speaker saying the same thing the first speaker said, but in a different way. The third speaker, like people repeating themselves across the entire sessions, across the entire panel, and then they finish, we clap for them and give them questions, and then they go, and tomorrow they come back with an updated version of the same thing they said last year, right? Those kind of practices need to change. Like, it's a waste of time. I'll be honest with you, it's a complete waste of time. You are in academia, you understand, there's no new research. Every research is being built upon. It's the hard reality. And that's why someone like Trump can look us in the face and tell us that we are the architects of our own predicament. Yes, we are, because we've ceased to see that we have all the solutions. So enough, let's get to work. Let's get to work. You say you want to come up with programs that curbs environmental sustainability. And every year we move COP from one country to the other and people fly in their thousands. And we are living in a digital space where you can manage the carbon credits. You can do a lot of things digitally. Now, I'm not saying that coming together is bad. Can we come together in our own countries? Ghana is in COP. I don't know what kind of policy they are going to present, but I don't know if you've seen the news. There's a huge water pollution crisis due to the illegal mining happening in Ghana. But our president will fly first class to Baku and talk about all of the big strategies they plan to implement. And something as basic as ensuring that certain licenses presented to the miners in Ghana ensures that they don't pollute the water bodies. We can't do that, right? And they say they're going to form committees to determine, but there's research. Ghana is not the first place that have, that has been affected by illegal mining and affecting our water bodies. Other countries have. For example, Nigeria, for example, their resource, we are more interested to be called experts, and, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we're more interested to be known and acknowledged as the leader in the ecosystem than the solution-driven, implementer in the ecosystem. If I ask you right now to tell me who is the largest environmental, like eco packaging company in the world, who would you say it is? Right? If I ask you, what is the best hosting platform, for tech solution that is eco renewable energy, do we know? So in our different spaces, we don't even know what the alternative is. In education, we can't really tell. In academia, we can't really tell. When you ask someone, they start telling you a story. In manufacturing, we can't even tell. In all of these areas, we can't even tell. In fashion, we can't even tell. And people think is by what? Doing their own part. That is how we get to the, no. It is by what? Understanding what exists within the growth that is happening right now to be able to achieve the sustainability that is very much more possible tomorrow. Not in 20 years or 2,000 years. So I completely agree when you say, okay, sustainability and growth. No, I agree. The realities are there. But when it comes to my understanding of what it means to build things long-term and be strategically aligned, we have to stop working in silos. That's number one. Number two, we have to reimagine what we consider as a win when it comes to working and developing solutions for environmental sustainability. Else, the smart ones will come up with the strategy for us, and they are doing it, which is adaptability strategies and greenwashing. Everything is being greenwashed. Companies have ESG policies, and when you ask them, what have you achieved in a year, they can't tell. More people are coming up with carbon credit trading solutions, and when you ask really, where is this happening, you can't even see. So with all of the solutions and the innovation and the research, Mother Nature is still rebelling, because that's why we have worse hurricanes, worse climate situations, like the list going on and on. If all of the research and the gatherings and everything that we're doing makes up for the solution, we will be feeling the impacts today. Example, 2020 was the only time in the past 100 years that we actually saw, the global warming ratio drop. The only time, right? And you ask yourself, why? It's because people decided to reflect. There was no, excessive movement. There was no, people were not trying to do my nostrils are, oh my God, but experts and practitioners, right? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it was lost a little bit.
Should I continue?
Yeah, please.
Okay, let me switch back. Okay, I think I'm back. Let me switch back to the other one. The electricity is stable now, and then we can continue talking.
Sure. No worries. In the meantime, listen, it's very interesting what you're just talking about implementing and adapting, because I think that's the challenge. Usually, like political, discourses, they're only talking intangible things. Okay, we will do it. This is gonna be the world. This is gonna happen. But when it comes down to implementation and adaptation, they failed, right? They failed for it. Yeah.
They fail completely. And for me, it is instead of having COPs every year for people to come and share what they would do or what their research has found, let's switch it up. Let's have COPs in individual countries first, for them to be able to do two things. One, provide information on what has been done in that year, what has been done first. I don't want to hear any new policy, new research, what's we found. No. Let's talk about what has been there before, right? What progress has been made, what growth has been made. And this should not be, 70%, we don't care about your percentage. We want actual numbers, right? Something that is tangible. And this year I had the opportunity to attend the African, the African Evaluation Conference. But I heard they have like a global evaluation program where you come up with like processes on how you evaluate things, from the M&E monitoring environment, monitoring and evaluation perspective. I realize there's a lot of indexes, there's a lot of thematic areas, there's a lot of ways we can track things, manage things, and thanks to AI and technology, you can even do it like this. But where is each country's, platform where you can track, like one-stop shop? I'm not even saying global, one-stop shop for countries. Okay, maybe I'm being too ambitious. One-stop shop for companies.
Yeah.
For waste or crate, we have all the data of how many plastics we've recycled, how many bottles, glass, everything that we do. We have actual data of how many organizations are enrolled in our programs, not just the organizations, their age, their data. We have all of this data. Now, this data, it is not one that is being sold for marketing purposes. No, it is for us to internally develop solutions that will help these people, implement whatever things that we seek to do. Because when you think about it, there's products that are eco-friendly. There are solutions that are eco-friendly, but people don't even know. They don't even know about it because the people who are not eco-friendly have so much marketing budget that you're trying to come up with your own you can't even match up. You can't even match up. So the only time you hear about environmental sustainability things is when the heavy hitter decides it's time to greenwash. So they come up with our eco-friendly arm of this. Nike will come up with eco-friendly shoe. One shoe, what happens to all of the other shoes collections that you're launching? You understand what I'm trying to say? Like, you come up with one thing, it's like they're teasing us. Oh, this is our new eco-friendly this. Oh, hooray, wow, Nike did this. Excuse you, they launch more than 2,000 pairs of collections every year. And we are happy for just one. What is the accountability mechanics? I don't even want to go into the fossil fuel part because that one is another conversation, right? But I'm talking about the things that make up our daily lives. When you are going to buy a product for your skincare, would you consider one that is done organically, fair trade, eco-conscious, or you would just buy the one that the label says this is what it is, right? And the reason why people would do that is because they think that the organizations don't even care, but they don't realize that it has nothing to do with the organizations. You're just a cash cow for them. It has everything to do with you, because when it rains, my house will flood, right? And when it floods, it is not my waste that I put out that will come back to me. It's the waste of others that will come back to you. And these organizations in their high rises will never see the impact of the work that they do. They never see it. It is us who are the consumers who actually even give them the power that suffer in-depthly, right? So in thinking about sustainability solutions and growth, I would say growth has happened because there's a lot of information that can really help us see the growth within the space. Now, can we now move away from that to now looking at the resources required to implement, right? Back to my model. The model in life is very simple. Resource, information, resource, and implement. So what is the resources that takes for me to create an eco-friendly packaging for wipe, okay? And I can easily get this packaging in my home country and I don't have to go all the way to China, right? Or even if I have to go all the way to China, what resources do I have that supports a small, medium scale, manufacturer or producer or, whatnot, right? The accessibility for environmental solutions and product and services is so low, you can't even find it. Even if you go to your local supermarket, there's everything else, and there's this very small shelf, eco-friendly products, and when you go, it's just 3 or 4 products that are there. How encouraging is that, right? So if we want to talk about heavy hitters, tell Trump, about the market possibility of making sure that every single restaurant in the US don't use plastic materials. Let's start there. Put a tax on it. Like, let him, put a tax for it where it affects the manufacturers, not the users. Because usually what they do is they put a tax for us, the users and the consumers, and we pay and nothing changes. From the manufacturers, let there be a policy, let's be a tax, right? If you continue to import plastics, this is what it means for you, right? Or put a ban to it completely. If you can put a ban to it completely, it causes rapid innovation. Then you will see sustainability at play because the research, the information, whatever that is needed already exists. You can do that for also the bigger things, like the things within the, the fossil fuel, and all of that stuff. Let organizations understand that these are non-negotiables, right? And you will start to see the rapid change. Like if we can do things like, look at Singapore, for example, like use Singapore as an example. You went there, look at Malaysia, see what they are doing intentionally, right?
Yeah.
Turning their own monies into, like, it's happening. And this is not happening because a group of people decide to sit at a conference and decide this is what they want to do. No, it's because the countries, the government saw that if they don't do this now, in the next 5 years, when the climate, the climate becomes more inconducive, when things become worse, they will be affected the most because they didn't even consider it 5 years ago. I'll tell you a funny story. Right in front of my house, there's a huge pothole, and whenever it rains, that's when, it causes a lot of crazy traffic here. But guess what? They don't remember that hole is there during the dry season at all. But then when it starts to rain, the water covers it. So you hear, boom, like the cars are hitting over it because they can't see. It's covered with water, so you can't even tell how deep the pothole is, right? And by that time, it's already too late. So we need to stop looking at growth as something that is long-term, but what can be achieved now, because the information to achieve that already exists. And now, the one that's driving me crazy is the resources. There's resource mobilization. I was at COP last year. Loss and damage raised over $167 million. And in the reports that I was reading recently, it has been disbursed to countries. And I'm asking myself, which country? Ghana last year, because of the lack of structural processes, our dam overflowed and rendered more than 2,000 people homeless, right? And of course, I'm sure my president put that as part of the loss and damage fund. But then up till now, those people have not been supported, like nothing has been done. And guess what? It flooded again this year, right? So when you think about how we don't take action until there is, in quotes, a reaction, then we start to complain. And that's what's happening with us environmentalists, is that we have become the town criers at this point. We've talked about the problems. We've talked about what it would do, how it would affect us. We've talked and talked and talked and talked. And it's as if it's going in here and coming out here.
Yeah.
Change. Like, let's reimagine. I would like to see a conference that is not about sharing, but about showcasing the innovations. And then the resources helping those innovations scale as rapid as possible. Right?
Yeah. I mean, for those who are not aware about the COP, is this
Yes.
conference of the parties, no? Is the
Exactly, yes.
Yes, it's like this Paris Agreement, trying to the
the
convention
parties,
on
which is like
climate
the
change.
biggest engagement when
Yeah, I mean,
yes,
basically, exactly. Yeah, I was trying to explain to our audience like COP is basically this conference of
exactly.
parties that, they take part of the
Audience,
global
yes,
climate treaty and so on. Yeah. That's funny,
yes,
man.
exactly.
Yeah, and for you especially because you are on the ground, it must be funny like how they talk so easily about certain
Yes,
problems because they haven't done
yes.
it.
No, they haven't. And you know what is so funny? Even within their own system, like for example, last year, COP did a whole big report that this was the most inclusive COP ever. Okay, beautiful. Visas were given to people because it's Dubai. Trust me, it was a vacation holiday. It has nothing to do with what we went there to do. You understand what I'm trying to say? All of these young people got their visas approved to come to Dubai, but then the UNFCCC did not give them accreditation to participate in COP. So when you arrive Dubai, obviously you get the visa to arrive Dubai. You are not being accredited by the UNFCCC, whether you are a party, observer, part of the negotiation, part of the, like they have so many like groups you can assess, right? And then imagine someone like me and the kind of work that I do, I come to COP and I'm only given access for 1 week, right? And then certain organizations are giving access for 2 weeks. Like it's as if it's a privilege. Like, I mean, it shouldn't be so. If you are creating an enabling environment and you are an institution responsible for this, it shouldn't be so. So you have more than 5,000 young people flying to Dubai. And when you go to the Children and Youth Pavilion, the people there are not even up to 100, right? And you're asking yourself, what does this mean? So I'm at the part of my career where everything I talk about is how we reimagine things. How do we reimagine youth involvement? How do we reimagine environmental sustainability? How do we reimagine our gatherings, our conversations? How do we reimagine these things? And if we can get ourselves to think that the solutions and the things we're putting in place after all these years, and we cannot see the impact, and we can be honest with ourselves that really this is not working, and we've wasted our time, effort, and resources, and that's okay. Now let's look at the mistakes we've made, take out the learnings, put that into actions so that we can mobilize the resources to implement our learnings. That way we can see results.
Yeah. And also like it's really annoying because like those people or those
Yeah.
actors who are talking like actively and
Yes.
leading these kind of environmental policies
Yes.
and so on, where they were in 2016 or where they were in 20 years back in time, like 20 years ago, where they've been. I mean, they talked in a way they've been working in the sector for
Yes.
forever, like,
Yes.
and it's not true, right? Listen,
Yeah.
I know the time is almost finished.
Yeah.
I want to ask you like a couple of more questions. First,
Please.
I want to go back to these challenges that you mentioned before. And your
Yes.
kind of epiphany, or if you wish, this wake-up call that happened to you when you lost your team while you were like having a fantastic opportunity for Waste and Create Hub. I want to ask you, what was the biggest lesson that you had as a consequence of this challenge?
Challenge. Wow. I want to sum it up into one word so that I can
Sure.
I can explain. The biggest lesson I learned is the power of undermining your positioning.
Okay, I like that. Cool. Undermining your positioning. That's
That
very
was one of
interesting.
the
That's cool, man.
yes,
Undermining your
I undermined my
positioning.
positioning exactly. And why I said, can you hear me? Oh, network. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, I keep losing network. Okay, good. So I'm saying that the biggest learning is the power of undermining your positioning. I underestimated the amount of work, right, that goes into everything I was doing. You know, I thought it should be something that would be easy for other people. Do you understand? Oh, I think we lost network again. Oh my
It's okay. Don't
goodness.
worry. Don't worry.
I shouldn't worry. Okay, good. All right. So I undermined, what it takes to do the work that I do, and I felt that, oh, if someone else can do it, like it's easy. Someone else can do it. Like, this is what you need to do. Just do it. But I failed to realize that heavy is the head that wears the crown,
Okay.
and if you decide that you are going to wear a crown, and that crown represents, in this case, the work that you're going to do and everything, you don't have to undermine your positioning. Instead, you have to create processes that makes your positioning efficient so that others can help you carry on your vision. Right? So some people don't understand what it means to lead, because they think leading is paving the way, doing it, getting it done, right? But then fail to realize that the day you cannot get it done is the day there's an actual loss. Why so? Because you might never find someone who has the same passion, have the same values as you, because you did not spend time in creating that process that enables it to be efficient so that others can do that. And if you think about it more, Andres, realize that I'm talking about the intergenerational divide. When underestimating your positioning, you don't think that what you know is important for someone else to know, and what you know can be built upon to actually make things bigger and better. So when I was leading Waste or Create, I felt like I was doing something that was okay. I'm making impact. That's all that matters to me. But when I lost Waste or Create, it broke me. I was depressed. I was like, oh my God. Like, for the first time, I had to pause and be like, is this all I did in the past year? I never even pumped the brake to turn back and be like, oh my God, this is what I was able to achieve. I didn't even think about it as an achievement. I just saw it as, I'm doing what I am excited about. I'm doing it to the best of my ability without caring about the outcome. And all that was important for me is that people will see it, and I will be able to mobilize those who will help me get it to where I need to get to. Fantastic on my side. But the reality is that if we want things to grow, if we want things to become an important footprint in the communities and the societies that we live in, we should not underestimate the power of our positioning and what that positioning presents us. And that is for us to be able to develop the system and the processes that ensure that knowledge transfer can exist. And somebody else will not just know your name as Chineyenwa Okoro Onu-Wyetey, CEO or founder of Waste to Create Hub, but can say that I know a Chineyenwa who really created a system that enabled every NGO on the African today to become structured, to be able to have access to resources, and implementing some of the world's biggest projects today. That is what I envision as my legacy. And why I say so is because our lived experiences is what shapes everything that we become. When you think about some of the most amazing impact-driven people, when you speak to them, they will tell you it's not about their skill set. It's simply because of their principles, who they are and what they wanted to see in their communities, and really being able to identify the opportunities to back that, right? And you remember in the beginning, I told you, when you asked me, did I think this was going to be successful? I didn't, because once again, then I underestimated my positioning. Right? But now today I realize that no, I should be proud of the work that I do. I should be able to put myself in the position where I can educate others and give others the opportunity to step into my shoes and walk on my shoes. And even if it hurts, they can find a way to adjust and create their own paths and footprint. But we are living in a generation that don't understand that. And you have to understand, this is not collaboration. It has nothing to do with collaboration. Collaboration has a whole different goals. But when I say understanding what it means to create an intergenerational value exchange, I'm talking about creating a system that enables us live and work together and be able to succeed together. Because at the end of the day, why are we all social entrepreneurs within the environmental sustainability phase? It is one goal. We can frame it as a beautiful mission, as a vision, as values, but at the end of the day, it's to ensure that we can have this planet, revitalized, regenerated, so that our generations and generations to come can benefit, can experience what we experienced. Because the world will not look the same way for them in the next 100 years if we continue the way we are doing it, right? So I think that it's really kind of like helping people to understand their value exchange in the society and how they can capitalize on that so that they can really create meaningful change in their community. And this does not come from a place of, oh, I'm the expert in the game and what I say should be. No, it is to communicate it from a learning experience, from a knowledge management perspective. So you're creating the structure that enables people to know all you know, and they can take all you know and develop on it so that other people can know. And by that way, the solution will continue to increase, right? And more ideas will continue to come to play and more impact to be made as it goes. So for me, that's it, is that I will never put myself in a position where I undermine my positioning. And this is not just individualistic. This is also for organizations and institutions. You said something in 2016 when I started Waste or Create, I was the only person doing things from arts to waste, like waste to art and upcycling. Today, almost all the youth-led environmental sustainability is doing the same. And they've not been able to transition from that, right? And that's simply because they do not understand that when you're doing something, you need to get to a point where you're like, okay, I've done this to my best of my ability now here. How best can I change this? How do you transition? And that comes from having the information to know what is the world's global trajectory. Would any of this matter in the next 10 years? If your answer is no, come back to your drawing board. Where are you now? What are you hoping to achieve now? What is your vision at this point? If my vision is with art, innovation, and creativity, nothing is a waste, fantastic. How long do I want to drive this vision? What kind of impact do I want to make? How many, what are the resources do I need to get there? How many turns of, put numbers to it. Now, when you get to that point, be okay with what you have done, create an information, put it out there so that people can see and then to step on, right? They have something to work towards. Now, if you're transitioning to a point where you're now going to policy, into program design, do that too. Like, let's transition. But if you realize we're not creating transitional processes, we're rather creating adaptive processes where it's okay to do this. Every NGO must have this. This must have this. For how long? When you look at the UNFCCC system, it's been like, it needs to be reevaluated. Like, we don't reevaluate things from an honest perspective and say, okay, this is not working anymore. This is what I should do differently, right? So when it came to me losing Waste or Create, it was more around, I started Waste or Create. I got it to this point. If I lose everybody who has ever worked with me, that's actually great. Well, I didn't feel so then. I mean, it broke me, but it's great. It means that I have outgrown that, right? It means that if they can do it, let them do it. I wish them all the best. Now, what else can I do to continue to champion my impact in a whole new level that it still enables these people to see what is possible long term? Right? So that is really it. That's all I can say, is that don't undermine the power of your positioning. See it as a pathway to enabling others. And most importantly, ensure that in whatever that you do, whether it's in sciences, whether it's in education, in business, that you are creating a pathway to enable the next generation to understand what it takes for you to get to this point, to be able to walk with you at this point, but to be able to step into your shoes and carry your footprints forward.
Thank you. So guys, do not undermine your position. And the last question, and I want to close this podcast with you, Chichi, is I can see the whole journey, you as a social hero, let's put it that way. So imagine nowadays that you achieved so much, that you achieved beyond you expected, and then you continuing, and now you're talking about legacy. If, imagine, you had the opportunity to, talk to your dad, to your mom, and to your community back home and ask them, how would you describe myself today in one word, on couple of words? What do you think they would say?
My mom would probably say, "You're such a smart girl, oh." Like that's how she would say, like, "You're a smart girl, oh." Oh, my dad. Oh, I think my dad would say I'm audacious. Like, I'm very daring. And I think my community would say I am I'm an enabler, I create pathways. I believe I create pathways for people. If I walk this path, I will make sure that it is a path that is clear for others to walk through as well. So one word for my mom, smart, my dad, audacious, my community, enabler. But if you ask me, I would say I have lived a whirlwind life. And I'm still very young, Andrea. I'm still very young. I have so much in front of me that is so exciting. But I think that I'm dedicating the next chapter of my life, really, to be able to help people understand what it means to build legacy in whatever they do. And to be able to achieve legacy, how can we work together? Intergenerational collaborations, one that is, free of ego, one that is free of oppression, one that is free of trying to prove a point, but one that is nurturing, one that helps people to know that if I come to you and I'm asking you to collaborate with me, you don't, first of all, see it from a competitive perspective, but you see it from a collaborative perspective. Because if you look at the biggest organizations and institutions in the world today, Microsoft, Apple, they were at loggerheads with each other for years, right? But today, you find Microsoft Word in Apple computers, and you find Apple, there's that collaboration. There's nothing that's impossible. That's like in my dictionary, there is nothing that's impossible. So sometimes when people say, oh, it's impossible for this to happen, I'm like, oh, you don't really understand how the world works, huh? Because it is in that impossibilities that possibilities happen. Right? And you notice it, you see it every day. The synchronicity around these things just is there, it's right in your face. People get to Trump will not come back. I used to laugh, like, you don't understand the world. In positivity and in negativity, it carries the same force. It carries the same force. People say, oh, being good comes with a different kind of energy. Same as being bad, right?
Yeah, right.
It is how you channel it, right? If you are channeling for good, good would win. If you're channeling for bad, it would equally win. Like there is no there is no difference out there, right? But it is understanding that we're living in a life that is, it's secular. It's what goes around comes around. And I tell parents, I said, whatever you are, when you give birth to a child, it's like the most precious thing you ever have, right? And then the child grows up and detests you. That's because they're able to see through you. They saw everything that you thought they would never see. And that's what people need to understand. Change makers, businesses, institutions, and all. If you are saying that right now, the position that you are to make change, and you're deciding to make a change that is not really one that will benefit generations to come, a time in history would come. It might not be popular that your name being in the presidency, but somebody will ask, who was the director for ABCD? And they'll say, that guy did a horrible job. Like you will not be here, but people will detest you because you had an opportunity uniquely to you to do something different in your community, but you chose not to. because of maybe your ego, maybe because of what you thought you were getting, your positioning and all of that stuff. But trust me, somebody in this timeline, in this lifetime, will question your work, right? And this questioning is not one that, oh, people say when you die, you go to your maker and you ask you what you've done wrong. No, it is in this time, here and now. And it's happening, right? Young people are questioning, why was he the Secretary General for this long and this is happening? Why is he the president and he couldn't do this? Why is this? Why is it? Kids are asking, Dad, why was that man shot? You know, kids are asking, why is our environment filthy? You know, and we as parents have to be able to look inwards. We as community change makers have to be able to look inwards, tell ourselves the truth so that we can also tell them the truth, right? And the truth is simply that so much good is possible for us on the continent. So much good is possible for us globally. We can fight for climate change. We can achieve climate resilience, right? But it has to come from reimagining and doing things differently and telling ourselves the truth, no matter how hard it is. Because really, our legacy is not by being a good person for our families and our, you know, and wherever we find ourselves. It's by putting a collective consciousness into the world that good is possible beyond our own internal, you know, ecosystems, but to those around us. Because whatever we do, our internal family friends see it, and it encourages them to want to do things differently. And because they do differently, their families, you know, it continues to spread, right? And it goes on for generation and generation to come. And that's what really I think is key, you know, is really key. My whirlwind life is one that I don't regret at all. If I have to talk to my younger self, any kind of advice, I'm like, no, just keep going. There's no time to think about what could be different. Just do it. Because you will come to a point in your life where you can then self-reflect and then look inwards to accept your challenges, right? And see the lessons within those challenges so that you can create a path forward for yourself. And in doing so, you can build a legacy that is more intentional, right? Way, way more intentional. And sometimes it might not look like it's working. But when I think about my dad today, 6 feet under the ground, I don't remember the times I had issues with him, the times we quarreled, the times where I felt like this man doesn't love me. You know, my parents were being so hard on me. I don't think about all of that, right? All I think about now is, wow, he actually lived and he didn't have all the answers, but he lived. And in the things that he did right, those are the things that I would take on with me. Those are the things I would tell my children so that they will know. And for the things that he did wrong, it's a lesson for me to know so that as I continue to engage with the next generation, I can help correct. And by doing so, he, wherever he is in this world, will feel proud of that. And that is the kind of mindset I would hope that people who are, you know, engaging in transformational change programs, projects, and services would do. You know, don't think about it from a job perspective. Think about it from yourself first. If you were, you know, if you could meet your younger self, would they be proud of the decisions you're making today? Right? And it is from there that you can be able to create the necessary superpowers that you need to get going, to collaborate, to get the money that you need, to live the life that you want to live, to make the impact that you want to live, because the challenges will come for sure, you know, but it is in those principles that guide you that will help you navigate those challenges so that you can, you know, you can get to where you need to get to in life. So I am still a work in progress. Everything I
As
know
everybody else.
today, it's a work in progress. Maybe when we do this catch up in the next 5 years again, I will probably be saying completely something different. But for where I am in my life right now, I'm excited for everything that I have achieved so far. You know, I'm excited for the lessons, and I am grateful for people like you who are creating the opportunities for other people to learn, because that is exactly what you're doing. You are bridging the gap. You're helping people understand that you cannot be where you are and think you understand the complexities of what it means to do your work in your different lines of work in your community. These are how other people are doing it. And I think that's the first step, right? Once we were able to get more people to understand. And that's why the beautiful thing I love about podcasts is that, you know, when you listen to podcasts, especially those ones that are deep dives, you know, you learn a lot more from like people and what really shapes them. And I hope that you continue to do this. And I'm always, 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 always open to this anytime. And thank you for thinking about me. I think that's critical. And I hope your audience learned a lot from my experience.
Chichi, what else to say, man? It was fantastic. I love the conversation, every minute of it.
Thank you.
Like I honestly, like, since we met, it was like, it was briefly though,
Yeah,
it was so inspiring. I hope you keep up going with your projects.
absolutely.
So listen, definitely I want to get in touch to collaborate,
Absolutely.
because I have something in mind after this conversation.
Fantastic. Let's
So
do it.
let's do this, something beautiful happening together.
Yeah.
Secondly, I would love you to connect me with your contact in Senegal. Maybe I could do
Okay.
a podcast with.
Yeah, coffee will be more than happy to get on. I can
Exactly.
connect you with the lead executive. Wow, yes, he would be a great resource person. He used to be the program's head for MasterCard Foundation. And I tell you what, I met Kofi when I was 18 and I won the Anzisha Prize in South Africa. And it was like one of those things. Like I said, I'm very resourceful. It's so nice. Sometimes I need to put myself at the back. I met Kofi there, and I was like, "Hey, you are the big man behind all of this." And he smiled. He was like, "No, I'm just an enabler, of all of this." And we stayed in touch since 2014 up until now. And now Kofi is no longer with Mastercard Foundation. I'm working with him as his chief of staff for the youth-friendly standards. It just tells you how life is. It took 2014 to 2024, 10 whole years for us to be able to start working together. So that's what I try to educate young people is it's not about what you get from people when you meet them. We met in 2019 and we're having this conversation in 2024. Anything is possible, right? You just need to open yourself and open your mind to it. So definitely Kofi will be a great resource person to have on. I will put you in touch. And if there is any other person you're looking out for on the continent that you would like to have a conversation with, I'm more than happy to also help you do the work. So
Sure, that would be amazing. Chichi, and the last petition, if you can maybe just share 2 tips for children or for people, not for children, but I mean for the youth or for adults that they want to make a difference in the world. What would you like? What would be like the 2 pieces of advice for them?
Start from within. Start from within. You cannot you cannot give what you don't have. Some people try to project what they think their perfect change journey should look like. It fails. I know because I've gone through a lot of transitional processes in my life. But what needs to be true is how honest can you be about yourself? What matters to you, right? And sometimes we live in a society where people will tell you the things that matters to you is not good enough. If money is what matters to you, find out how to make money, right? In a way that it does not become a menace to those in your community. You can make money legally. You can make money impactfully, right? Figure that out. If you're saying that, what is important to you is for you to be known and acknowledged for who you are, beautiful. Do it with the best of intentions and ensure that it does not create a menace, once again, to the people around you and in your community. For young people, if you want to be able to be successful, you have to be willing to put yourself in a position where you learn. You're not learning because you're trying to replicate, because some people just see stuff and they want to do it. No, give yourself the opportunity to learn. Ask questions, like top questions that only you know why you're asking. You understand what I mean? Sometimes people ask questions, oh, so how did you raise your first $1 million? I don't want to know how you made your first $1 million. I want to know why you thought you could make $1 million. What is that thing that drives you so deep that you get yourself to this point? It is not the how, it is the why. So find out what people's why is. That's what I encourage all young people to do. To succeed, find out what your why is. For individuals, figure out what makes you inside so that you can do better for outside. But I think most importantly, to wrap this up for everyone looking to make a difference, that is important. Once you have identified your why, you have identified what you want to do, whether through academics, you went to school, you got a job. Once you've identified, try to build a structure that helps it stay like consistent for generations to come. Think about what processes you can put in place. And you know what's so funny, Andres? The process can be as simple as setting up a Google Drive that has all the resources of all your work, and you can just share it to people. Right? And that comes from that. Like you can do that, like reflect on what it takes to open a bank account. Like people think these are like simple things, but some people, that's their biggest concern. How am I going to open a bank account for my organization without ABCD? What it means to be an academic, what it means to be a doctor, what it means to be, a business person. It is the most basic lenient things that really gets people to succeed. And that's why Google is the most richest company in the world. Every search engine, think about it. They're the most researched because any person, organization, institution, resource platform that can answer questions holds the upper hand. Do you understand what I mean? Because you are bridging the gap to information. So develop structures that help people understand your process, your work, and what you do. Then mobilize resources. And resources, once again, like I said, if you can think about the information, resources is what to utilize. Like I mentioned, the Google Drive, you can put it there, contacts, information, and then consider yourself in a position to implement. So if you know that you're planning to retire soon, or if you know that you want to be able to move from point A to point B, put yourself out there. Do you understand? Like now, LinkedIn helps people do this easily. I'm transitioning from point A to point B. I need help with A, B, C, D. People don't know how to utilize these platforms. People only use it when they have something to announce and share. But that's a place to implement. Show what you can do. Take your power and your positioning into your own hands. Don't hide what you're capable of doing. I'm not saying become a public speaker, an influential person. No, not all of that. But find a channel to express what you're good at so that people can learn and people can benefit and people can also come to you so that you can learn how, you can also learn from them and you can better implement. Right. So that's it. One, internalize, then externalize, ensure that you can be honest with yourself to determine what change you really want to make. Two, ensure that you understand the information that is required to be the best person of yourself. And that's really by, going out there and talking to people. Three, which is most importantly, develop the structures that you need to be able to ensure that whatever it is that you say you are and you're doing can be tracked consistently. Whether you're transitioning, it doesn't matter. You have to be able to leave a footprint so that people can understand the value you created in your time here. And I think if you can do that, everything else within my first 3-1, which is information, resource, and implementation, will be very easy.
Fantastic. So Chichi, thanks for that. Let's take a little photo
before
we go in.
Yes.